What's going on, YouTube? Back at you with another video. We got podcast number 8. We got some recurring guests. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves for the folks that don't know.
Age before beauty. Steve Allen, good friend of Mr. DJ here. And there you go. I'll leave it at that. From Yonkers. Here you go.
The most charismatic man in entertainment himself from LA. Good friends of Dimitri. Just me and Steven, but we're all actors. So, you know, that's all I can say.
We're artists.
And I like to do, bro. It's working.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my brand, so I got to rep it.
All right. Okay. Do you, boo.
Yeah. So we did a podcast before talking about, combat sports and everything like that. So I wanted to, preface this whole conversation with how we all got into combat sports, of boxing, MMA, UFC, any kind of martial arts. So I'll let one of y'all go first.
I'll let him.
Yeah, so as the only one right now in this podcast that follow MMA, my journey started watching it would have been 2014. Obviously, everybody kind of grew up in our era watching Mayweather, but I fell in love with John Jones, and I love the not the brutality of it, but the physical aspect of it. I've always been a fitness guy, so I love the workouts and the techniques and stuff like that. So after watching it, I started getting into it, and I love the sport. I'm not going to say whether it's better at boxing or not, but I do love the sport, and I find it very entertaining.
Yeah.
I go back to the days of Shaolin. Well, in my youth, I was born in the mid-'60s, but the bottom line is we used to watch like Bruce Lee movies and things like that. And you guys today are like doing it today because it was all just movies and making the sound effects. And so then I took martial arts later in life. I took a little Kodoshi-do, but I did that for my inner self and find out what my chi was and all that other good stuff. But this MMA stuff, that's on a whole different level, brother. So I respect it. It's a manly sport,
Right. Not everybody could do boxing or MMA.
Right.
We talked about that. We almost got into on the last podcast where he was about to try to debate me on what's better, boxing or UFC, or MMA, and I was telling him that it's a separate craft. It's a separate art.
It's two different things.
You can't say Kung Fu was better than Taekwondo. They're just two separate.
Right.
You can't really compare the two.
Yeah.
Just quickly, the only reason why I do that is because I always see, especially with the whole Mayweather flirting with MMA thing, everybody always compare.
That was just a money gig.
Yeah, but it's just an interesting debate. But
I see
let's get right on to it.
So, but all right. So
I see you going with it though.
Not for me.
Mayweather showed he's good with the hand.
Yeah.
Nah, for me, growing up, I honestly wasn't into combat sports at all. Like, I mean, I was kind of really like a basketball casual, and then that was about it. It wasn't until I was at work one day and I just had food, I was on lunch, and then I was on YouTube and I was trying to find something, cool to watch. And then randomly I saw Shawn Porter, training for Keith Thurman, and I just started watching it. And then just the way that Shawn and his father, Kenny Porter, would like talk about the sport, it just made it super cool for somebody who knew nothing about the sport. So I was like, yo, what is this? And Steve, if you've seen, Keith Thurman versus Shawn Porter back in 2016,
yeah,
if I would recommend somebody who wanted to get into the sport, who was interested, I would tell them to watch that fight. Because that was damn near fight of the year. That year, they went at it. And then just, since then, I just really got into the sport. So now, being a fan of the sport of boxing, I'm just always in the gym, like he was saying. So that just became a trickle effect into fitness and just, nutrition, just the way that I eat, the way that I feel. Because there's no way you can watch these guys operate athletically on such a high level and then that doesn't rub off on you in some way, shape, or form. So just since then, it kind of, I don't want to say it changed my life, but it just changed my way of thinking. Because then once you get into training boxing can correlate into life. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody cutting the ring off on you circumstance-wise, your relationships with people, how you go about life. I equate that to boxing. So that's
absolutely. Yeah. Discipline.
But
I dig it, man, because I go back to the day Sugar Ray Leonard, Ali and all that. And I
feel like I missed out on that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So my hero, Sugar Ray, was my man coming because he was fast with the hand. And that's then, and then you compare it to martial arts. Bruce Lee was off of the god of martial arts back then. And oh boy, I used to love watching all the movies. But the fights, boxing, Sugar Ray Leonard was my man because he was smooth with it. You know, how's that?
Yeah. But and what's
I'm
funny?
old. Listen, Dad, what?
No, and what's funny, I got into the sport a little late, so I kind of feel like I missed the Floyd era a little bit. Because I had always heard about him and Manny Pacquiao. Like, you know how you're a casual, so you're only going to hear about the biggest people. You're not going to hear about, like, the smaller fighters people don't know about. I missed that because by the time I really got into it, it was when he fought Andre Berto, if you know what I'm talking about, the Haitian fighter, dark-skinned guy.
Yeah.
And
strong fellow.
I think that was his last serious fight. Then he fought McGregor, I think, two years later, because he fought McGregor in 2017. So But I wanted to ask you guys. So one thing that kind of crossed my mind last year was who could be. All right. So do you think somebody could be the face of a combat sport if they don't speak English? Because to me, I'm like, I don't really know who the face of boxing is today. Because the biggest fighters that most people know, like a Canelo Alvarez, maybe a Triple G, everybody knows Lomachenko. They don't speak English. Now, I don't know how it is for UFC, where I think we talked about that before as far as like household names. So I don't know what you guys' opinion on that is.
Well, from my perspective, just watching media interviews and stuff like that, it's tough, that language barrier. And it's not a knock on those people. I thoroughly appreciate diversity and stuff like that. Right. But if you're going to be the face of a brand, it's tough. Yeah, in America, where a lot of people watching speak English. So, like, for instance, like, I'm not going to get into this thing yet, but for instance, Paulo Costa, one of the main eventers for the who's fighting Israel Adesanya this weekend, he doesn't speak English. And just watching the press interviews is tough because he has a hard time speaking his mind in English. People have a hard time understanding what he's saying in his native tongue.
Unless
so it's
tough.
Have
a translator there.
Yeah, you want to be able to incorporate everybody, and it could be helpful to be bilingual. But I like when you think of Mayweather, Conor McGregor, John Jones, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Right. These are all people that are stars, but they speak English. Right. So
Right.
No,
listen, it's kind of interesting you just said that because actually we did a play called The Legend.
Yeah.
And, Dimitri, the part Dimitri played was a real showboat kind of guy. He'd come out, you got to give people a show, and that's what people want anyway. But then you got to show and prove. So you're right, though. The brand, man, nowadays, if it ain't music, to put yourself out there and have America accept you, there's a lot of guys now, they learn English so they can get their when they get interviewed at the end, they go, well, like even Manny Pacquiao. Well, but he got better with
Manny Pacquiao.
But you want to hear what these guys say. You do, because you want to know what he did to really beat the dude, man. I find it very interesting.
Right.
And just a little side note, one prime example of someone who's a big star who transcended the language thing is Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I'm not sure if you know him.
Khabib,
but
I know him.
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, Khabib, you said?
Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yeah,
where's that? He's the guy.
The Papa Yacht. Yeah, he was another. He didn't speak English well, and then once he blew up into stardom, even though he doesn't speak clear English, he can give an interview. He can talk, and like it's cool to hear him. Not struggle, but he mixes the Russian with the English. So that's a good example of. Yeah.
Plus, he can kick ass.
See,
for me, that's the bonus.
For me, I think in terms of who the face of boxing is, I feel like it's still Floyd, because we know
Floyd's always going to be.
Yeah, because first of all, he's undefeated. He's technically 51-0 now. Everybody's just pretty much waiting for him to come back. You know what I'm saying? And I think now what people are doing, or what these networks are doing to compensate for that, is when you get the KSI versus Logan Paul, the Jake Paul versus this guy, that guy. In fact, there's a rumor going on that Floyd is going to come back and fight one of the Paul brothers.
Yeah, the Logan Paul. I hope not.
I don't think it's true.
No.
I don't think it's true, because I repeat what I said the first time, where these guys, they're not boxers. Like you could clearly tell, when they're training, when they're in the ring, they just look like a couple of guys who got money, and then they're just in the ring. It's like a circus show. It's not no real. So you mean to tell me Floyd is really going to come back and he's going to fight some dude with maybe a year and a half or less than a year experience?
Well, Ali and Frazier, George Foreman, they were actually all good friends. But because Ali's name was so big, to get a fight with Ali, Ali say, they'd be like, I need some money. And that's even documented in their movie. But it's a real story. These guys, man, to make money, you got to fight Ali. To fight Mayweather, you're going to make some money, and you're probably going to lose because I don't think he's going to let his record be, tarnished by some bullshit and anything like that.
Hey, money talks. So.
No, I just think that's what they're doing just to compensate for that. So I think in one way it brings more attention to the sport, but in like the wrong way because it makes people feel like anybody can be a boxer. Like I can just go buy some gloves, get a trainer, and then all of a sudden I'm a boxer. You don't see people do celebrity UFC fights. You don't see people do celebrity.
Exactly.
That's not, and even if they do, it's very few and far between because that I think is taken a little bit more seriously than boxing in that respect because you can wear headgear. Just like the Tyson, Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, they're wearing headgear. So they're a little bit on the safer side than, let's say, you know what I'm saying, otherwise in the octagon where elbows, knees to the face. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That's a very dangerous sport too, bro.
It's a dangerous sport, and it's boxing, and I love boxing to a degree, but you see it time and time again. The problem for me is not even so much that it's showing people that you could just pick up gloves and fight. Is that it's showing people that as long as you have some clout, you can go do whatever you want, which is fine. But for Floyd Mayweather to take this fight, if this is even a possibility, and I'm not even saying it's not, because knowing Floyd's spending habit and stuff, he could probably use the money, but
everybody says that. Everybody says that.
But that's what's dangerous is though one little hit to the temple, man. You sitting in a wheelchair and drinking Slurpees all your life. I'm just saying.
There's been more deaths in boxing than MMA, so
yeah. A lot of damage.
As a matter of fact, let's kind of recap that a little bit. So on the last podcast, we talked a bit about the Tyson fight and Roy Jones, and I know Steve, you're a fan of boxing. You came up, in boxing when they were, kind of prominent in the guys. So what do you think about that?
Well, you mean this thing they're talking about? You said did Roy back out though?
If it's
Roy
happening, because apparently he said that he regrets taking the fight, and then I guess he woke up one day and was like, "Oh shit, I'm really."
Well, he saw that training video with Tyson, and Tyson said, he said at first, "I'm thinking about coming back," and they were taking on tour, and then Tyson hit that water bag, and you see Tyson's arms and the way he was hitting. I was like, I mean, I ain't no expert in none of this, but I'm like, I don't know, bro. Is it worth it? Is it worth your life? That's what I'm saying.
He's like, this ain't no charity match.
Yeah. Something's gonna click.
Yeah.
And Mike is gonna go. He start doing that head like this, and that's
exactly what I said. Yup.
See, but the thing is, there's all of that. But when we were talking about it last time, I came to find out that there's a no cut rule, and they're wearing headgear. So I'm not really sure what he's worried about because obviously when you wear headgear in boxing, the headgear kind of, takes a little bit, off the brunt of the punches.
Of course, right.
So I don't know what made him wake up all of a sudden to say he doesn't want. I don't know if the fight is still on or not.
Science.
Sure.
I believe it's still on for November. The thing I kind of could see where his point is because there's certain people, no matter if it's a charity match or anything, if you hit them the wrong way, that's it. Mike Tyson's always had that killer instinct, and I'm sure he still does. So even though it's a charity match, if Roy Jones hit him with an uppercut or he stuns him in a slight way, I'm sure it's going to switch to, back to the 1970s, 80s, and 90s when he was at his prime. So
that switch is going to turn on. That right hook is coming, and either it's to the body or the head. And Mike, that's funny. I was watching a lot of his old fights. And Frank Bruno was a guy that was just all muscle. And Frank Bruno was popping all this shit. At the beginning of the fight, when they have the stare down, and Mike just looks at you like, And Frank Bruno had a look on his face like, oh, damn, what am I thinking? That's what I'm saying. I think that's what happens when you get closer to a Mike Tyson fight.
Right.
Death will become you. Something as ugly is going down.
Yeah. Now, last year, almost around this time, I think, this time last year, Errol Spence was about to fight Sean Porter.
Yeah.
Then I'd say a month after. So basically, he fought Sean Porter to become a unified champion. So right now, he's got the WBC belt and the IBF belt right now. Then a month later, he got into like a super car accident. Percy, I'm not sure if you heard about that, but basically, he crashed his Ferrari at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And
I've heard about that. Yeah.
And he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and he got.
Did you not see the video, bro?
Yeah, I seen it. Yeah, it was on Twitter.
That was big news. And so obviously he made a full recovery. And in November, he's actually fighting Danny Garcia. If you guys are familiar, I think Steve, you probably know Danny Garcia.
Yeah, no, I do know.
Hispanic, him and his dad. So, what was your thought when that happened? I think we probably talked about it before, but I want to get your opinion again.
But Danny Garcia fight?
Nah, so I mean about the whole Errol Spence car accident thing.
Well, listen, to me, one is it's a blessing that he's alive, and I mean unscathed.
Yeah, no broken bones.
So I do believe he had some serious soul searching that came to him, and something happened where an epiphany. And I know people sat his ass down, from dad to mom, whomever, family, and said, "Listen, goddamn, you're rich. We don't want you to quit, but we want you to really think now about your social life or what you do outside this ring, how you maneuver in life." And I really believe that's going to be a big, big piece of his. It's not even a comeback. It's more of he's being reborn.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been near death, something happens to you where it's like something has been bestowed upon you that I can still do this. You left me here, Lord, to do this.
Right.
And I feel Garcia, Danny, I love Danny too. Danny can fight. It's going to be, I'd just say it like this is going to be a good fight. But what happened to Errol Spence, if you've seen that car accident, you knew how this boy, that was an active guy, and I ain't no religious dude.
Yeah.
But something has said to him, I need to rethink everything.
That's going
hard. The COVID started, and he just train. He went to Shaolin. Right. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Errol Spence said he didn't even have like life insurance. So he was like, if something really had happened to him, then he would have been leaving his kids out in the cold. Like,
they got.
He was just switching his whole lifestyle, like being out in the clubs, doing all of that.
Right.
Because the thing is, most people who probably have Danny Garcia winning that fight is because they question, whether or not Errol's going to be the same guy because he didn't take a tune-up. In fact, I was actually just listening to one of his interviews with Brian Custer, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna put me back in with the deep waters." You know what I'm saying? Because that's where I belong. He wasn't trying to take a tune-up. So I have Errol Spence winning that fight because I just don't see Danny Garcia doing anything that Sean Porter couldn't do. If Sean Porter couldn't do it, and Sean Porter beat Danny Garcia 2 years ago. Right. So if
but
Sean
it's not even about boxing. This to me isn't about boxing with Errol. I'm saying boxing is the other element. All I'm saying is something. This is some act of spirituality. Here.
Yeah, they come.
And Danny Garcia taking this fight with him. It's going to be a dangerous moment for Danny Garcia because I've seen Errol hit, and when he hit Kell Brook.
just stylistically.
He hits hard.
Stylistically, I don't see Danny Garcia moving Spence because Spence just got too much power.
Yeah, keep coming at you too.
It's still, Errol's still fighting a former champion. I'm not taking anything away from Danny Garcia, but every time I've seen him fight, I don't see anything. He's just got a good hook. He can
hit hard. Yeah, Danny can hit hard. He can hit hard. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think the fact is, and I'm not too sure about Danny Garcia and Spencer, but I think the thing with Spencer is times have shown, not always, but most of the time, people who suffer life-threatening injuries or situations like that he experienced, they come back, don't want a tune-up fight, and then something happens in the ring and they can't perform that the way that they used to. And I'm not saying he can't bounce back from it, but I think there's a mental shift, like Steven said. I don't know what he's going to come into this fight like. Because, people do all this talking, I don't need a tune-up fight, and then you get in the ring and you seize up. Because,
he trains with the Charlo brothers.
Nah. So Errol and Jermell, they got the same trainer, Derek James. But sometimes they might train at the same gym, and maybe they might spar together if they're in camp at the same time. But
I'm saying is he trains with bigger guys.
Oh yeah.
He fights bigger guys.
Yeah, he
that way.
Bars heavyweights, light heavyweights.
Yeah. So
I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because it makes the fight that much more easier on fight night.
Yeah.
Now, is Octavia? Is he? What weight class is he?
Errol's he's a welterweight, so he fights at 147,
Oh, okay.
147. So where Floyd used to fight at.
It's gonna be fun.
I've always found that interesting because in UFC welterweight is 170. Yeah,
it's weird. It's weird, but I mean, I think one thing we could talk about is I think the disadvantage, or I won't say disadvantage, but just the bad thing about boxing, and the good thing about UFC is that UFC has less weight classes and less belts. So if you're in, you know what I'm saying, the welterweight or 170 in UFC, there's one champ, there's one guy. Versus boxing, you got 4 different champions with 4 different belts. In fact, you probably got, you say 6.
Do they make money in UFC
belt.
too?
Huh?
Do they make money in UFC?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they make money, but they don't make as much as boxers do. That's a fact.
Well, yeah, the pay scale they don't have fights that often, do they? Because it's
they do. I think
they have
they have a lot of fights,
especially during the pandemic. Like every week they have.
Well, what I'm saying is, after your fight, how long of a downtime do you have before your next fight?
Yeah, I think it depends on how much damage you take, though, right?
It depends.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Recovery process is a little different.
Yeah, because like right now, this is the hottest guy right now in MMA. Zamsa, I can't say his name correctly, but he's been with the UFC for 60 days and he fought 3 times already. But then you have people like John Jones, Khabib, who only fights like once or twice a year. Conor fights, so it just depends. And really, I feel like
they made some big money.
It depends on how much money you make. The more money you make per fight. The less,
because people have to fight you.
Because in UFC, even it's like what's in the video games is actually true. Like they get more money if they get like fight of the night or like the best knockout and stuff. So yeah, they're a little bit different.
Yeah, and then for some people, when you first get into the UFC for like the first year, to depend on how your performance is, you get your pay split between a show bonus and a win bonus. So. Wow. For me, let's say I get signed to the UFC tomorrow, my pay would be $15,000 to show and then $15,000 to win. So if I don't win, I only get $15,000.
See?
And if I don't show up, I don't get nothing. So
that's cool. Yeah,
I'd say that's the downside to UFC because in boxing, the boxers seem to have a lot more power and say than UFC does. The thing is, it's kind of like the NBA. Like there's just that organization, which is the NBA. Boxing, there is no set organization or nothing. That's why you have different sanctioning bodies that have 4 different belts, and then you have the networks. The networks don't really do nothing but put the fight on, and then that's it. The promoters and the sanctioning bodies are the ones who get the venue. They sanction the fight. They do all these different things. So I think that's what allows boxers to get more money, to have more say. They get to decide who they want to fight and get to cherry pick. UFC, they can't.
Boxing has been around longer. I mean,
it has been longer. Yeah.
Boxing.
But UFC goes back to. I remember when they had the Greco-Roman wrestling and all that.
Yeah. Yes. I think the 60s. I think.
It's like just guys with their little tank top, just get in there, grab each other, roll around, and then it moved to WWF and WWE and all this other craziness. Yeah. And so they got bigger and stronger.
So are you going to tune into the Charlo pay-per-view? Because I am.
I don't
basically, so Charlo is unifying. So will pretty much be one belt away from being the.
Is that this weekend?
Champ. That's this Saturday. So he's one. If he wins,
I'm going to a funeral Saturday morning.
Oh well, no, it's Saturday night. But basically, if he wins,
I'll be down in Yonkers.
If Charlo wins, then he'd be one belt away from being undisputed at 154. And I don't even remember the last time that happened. And then Jermall, the bigger brother who fights a middleweight, basically he's fighting the guy that technically beat Triple G.
Really?
So yeah, because when Triple G fought Sergey Derevyanchenko, people say that did I see that fight? I saw highlights of the fight, but basically people say that Derevyanchenko got robbed and that Triple G only really won because of politics.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of it, man.
So basically, if he beats him,
I hate boxing.
If he beats Sergey better than Triple G, obviously like more convincingly, and maybe stops him, then Jermall is really that guy until he gets to fight Canelo. Whenever Canelo.
I like them Charlo boys though, man. They come in, they pop a lot of shit, but they can get down and they hit hard. Yeah. And I just like their way, man, because they come in and they ready to destroy your ass.
Yeah, but they're getting a lot of shade, thrown at them because, and all right, in my opinion, I feel like their fight, the Charlo brothers, like I like them, but they're not at that point yet where I feel like they can do a pay-per-view. I think that they should have put it on free TV. They should have put that on Fox, like Channel 5.
Everybody can watch because you know what it is, and stepping back, they promote themselves very well because they constantly talk to fans and they pop a lot of shit. They got their own little podcast they do, I think, or something like that, and they're twins, and that's what makes it so because you're like they talk to each other and they just like yelling at each other and shit. You're like,
they had beef
talking to each other.
They have problems.
So it is. It's a good show with these guys, and I think they found it.
Yeah, but even Errol was saying that he'd rather be on free TV than pay-per-view because pay-per-view, not everybody has $80, $75 to just throw away at that.
Yeah, it's
like otherwise you like me where you're a hardcore boxing fan where you want to see it so bad that you're willing to just say, all right, take my money because I just want to see the fight that bad. Yeah. Some regular people invite
8 friends, $10 a piece.
That's what I'm saying. And then it's not the same situation where they're showing the pay-per-views in public places. Like I will go to the movies to go catch a pay-per-view. They're not doing it. That's why I feel like it would have been – I think it would have been more beneficial for them to get their names out there. These are good fights. Put it on free TV. Pay-per-view is like
it's getting kind of played out. It is. It's getting old.
It's just that it's limiting them because what's going to happen is if it doesn't do the numbers that people are holding them to do, people are going to talk shit. They're going to be like, oh, the Charlo Brothers flopped. It only did 200,000 buys, 300,000 buys, and then they're not. You know what I'm saying? Because usually now it's like what helps your stock as a boxer is when your pay-per-views do astronomical numbers, like Tyson Fury.
Doesn't it get like bootleg now and everything? People get hacking.
They got sites.
I can never find that.
Yeah,
I can never find that.
But I'm saying it does exist, and I think a lot of the money's lost in that. And like you said, though, it should be free. ESPN, when ESPN was starting to put on fights.
Yeah, and I think that's been the biggest thing for boxing is the fact that it's the lack of access. So, for instance, like UFC, and I hate to always compare them, but I have to. At least the UFC, what they would do is they'll put on free cards on TV. Now they have deals with
main
ESPN.
Event is.
Yeah, they'll put the main event on pay-per-view, but they'll put the prelims on TV so people can watch it. Cool. And then they decide they want to tune in, they can pay for the pay-per-view.
I think
money.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm not sure how, because I've seen a bunch of UFC fights, my time in like recent years, because I dated somebody like UFC. But boxing, I don't think they do it. Well, they do that, but the preliminaries that they show on YouTube, they're not that entertaining. So I wouldn't. First of all, no one's in the crowd. I don't expect anybody to watch them because unless like you just love the sport and you just want to watch a fight just to score it or just to enjoy it, you're not gonna want to sit there and watch all of that for 12 rounds. Right. And these are like 3 to 4 undercard fights. People you don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like because Showtime
has Tyson fight, you go to the bathroom, you come out, it's over.
Yeah, like you know what I'm saying? So to me,
mad as hell, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think not that pay-per-view is going to become obsolete because pay-per-view does kind of have that feel, that you know what I'm saying?
It's going to get played out, man.
I think their
like HBO. That's why HBO lost it.
Yeah, I just think that their particular, like their fight card, the doubleheader, I don't think it was a smart move to put it on because I think that's just setting them up for failure because people look at that whether it was an entertaining fight or not, they're going to look at the live gate, the numbers the next day, and they're going to report it and then they're going to talk shit.
And
just
a little side note, that card is actually, I'm not sure when it's airing, but it's on the same day as the UFC fight with Israel Adesanya.
It's always like that. It's always like that. They usually compete. So there's usually, every time there's like a big boxing match, there's always like a UFC 202 that's that same night. So
I'm just saying, last time that happened, UFC destroyed them. So it's just it depends on what time.
It depends on who was fighting that night in terms of boxing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And then again, like the last, like Errol Spence, Mikey Garcia was pay-per-view. That did pretty good. For Errol Spence being somebody upcoming. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder did pretty well. I don't know what UFC fights were competing that night. You know what I'm saying? Because and it was funny, UFC fights, they run a lot later than boxing matches.
Yeah, they do.
They do. I go to David Buster's to see a UFC fight. I'm still there at like 1:30 in the morning. Probably just leaving.
Yeah, it's because they put their cards at night. The only thing with boxing, the drawback with boxing is that one match, like I'll see free fights of boxing on YouTube, but I'm like, yo, an hour and a half, I don't have time for that. I'm not trying to sit there and watch two guys, feel each other out for 5 rounds.
Right.
I can't watch that.
If you're not, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's usually like whatever floats your boat kind of thing. Because I might like you might not like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Some people
exactly.
Like basketball. Some people love baseball. I can never sit and watch a baseball match, a baseball game ever in my life.
If a fight come on Saturday, then by Monday it's on cable. So it's like
I think
it's ESPN, and you'll see the little ticker coming in and be like, look who won. Oh, it just depends.
Yeah. But I think that's I only brought it up.
Like that.
I only brought that up because it's a lot harder for casuals to get involved. Like UFC, they're casual. They pretty much advertise for casuals because it's easy to get someone to sit down and watch a 3 or 5 round fight that's 5 minutes and it's involves knees and elbows and stuff.
Not really. I tell you, because
not always.
I tell you, how many UFC fights I got dragged to, and I was falling asleep. On my girl's shoulder, like at Dave and Buster's.
You're probably watching them early prelims.
I mean, because the thing is, it's usually whenever, like, if it's entertaining, like if I was seeing like a Yoel Romero fight, you know what I'm saying? Like he was pretty, like a good guy to watch, and a couple other guys that I can't, like Nate Diaz. I was like, I seen the Conor McGregor Nate Diaz fights. So those are pretty cool, but not every UFC fight is like that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no,
I'm more of a technical guy where I like to see like the little, nuances with boxing. UFC.
But is UFC a younger generation kind of thing now, though? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of cats my age, or maybe even just a little younger, that even know what UFC is all about.
It's definitely, there's some legends. Anderson Silva is probably fighting his last fight. There's a few people in there, mid.
Oh, you were asking like if there's older people?
Well, yeah, I'm saying as far as the crowd, the fan base.
I think it usually when I go to every time I've been
to catch on
and I see them fights, it was usually like mostly guys. Like 95% of them are guys, and then like they're kind of like 20s and like 30s, like between like 20s.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It's definitely MMA is definitely a young man's game because the problem is, as you get older, for a lot of them, you fight in 15, 20, 25 years, your chin is not the same that it used to be, and it's harder to cut weight. So it's definitely a young man's game. There's not a lot of 40-something-year-olds walking around.
Yeah,
and if they are, they retire.
And I've watched it quite a few times. And then McGregor can actually get down. I've watched his fights, man. Yo, he pop a lot of shit. The boy can get down.
So, also, Steve, so what you think about Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook? Apparently that fight is coming up.
Terence.
They're already training, and apparently they're in negotiations, so I think the fight is already going to happen. It's probably going to be on ESPN, I think.
Well, Kell is on that, that grind because of what Spence did to him. I'm just saying.
Both his eyes broke.
But Crawford, too, he's an animal, and the boy, he's a journeyman. And those kind of guys that'll fight anybody is a dangerous cat. Yo.
I'm not even going to front. I kind of want Kell Brook to win that fight, man.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah, I'm just saying. Kell Brook's got a lethal punch, too.
And because you watch the when he fought Errol Spence, he was giving, Spence, run for his money. He's not no slouch. It's just that his eye.
But Spence kept coming. He hit Spence. He stood up, and Spence came back and just kept coming.
Stylistically, they kind of canceled each other out. That's why it was such a tit for tat fight until his eye and his vision got messed up. Then he couldn't see it, and that's when he started to, And what's funny, he stopped in the 11th round, so he really tried to make it. So much credit to Kell Brook. Even though I like Spence better, but I just think that, put it like this. It would be better for the sport of boxing if Terence Crawford won that fight, because everybody wants to see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. Nobody wants to see Errol fight Kell Brook again.
But the thing is,
this is going
to be the show and prove with Kell and Crawford, because like the way Spence handled Crawford did hit him with some good shots, and Spence didn't go nowhere.
Yeah.
So we want to see if Crawford could take this power that Kell's got also. So
that's what I'm saying, because Terence Crawford is coming from 140 You know what I'm saying? And he hasn't really fought anybody yet. So technically,
Right,
this
thank
would be,
you.
and that's what I'm saying. So this would be his defining moment to see how well he does in comparison to Errol Spence.
Say it. Yes.
Yeah, because I like Terence Crawford and everything like that, but I just haven't seen much from him.
Yeah, he, like I said, he's a journeyman. What he did, and I like what he did, was he did not back down. He took every fight on. Yeah. And so he made his rep like that. But you're right though. But who did he fight? What kind of fighters did he fight? Mm-hmm. And I respect him too though, because the boy, I mean, he looked like Bud can get down. He can slip and drop, and he can hit hard. But can he take that punch? Errol can deliver some pain. I don't think these cats have seen
Errol is battle tested already. Errol fought Sean Porter, Lamont Peterson, Mikey Garcia, freaking Leonard Bundu, Chris Algieri, Kell Brook. So he's got six high-profile fights.
And after Kell, what happened?
Oh, like
whole enchilada, all these guys.
All these guys, yeah. Terence Crawford, you can't say that because he fought freaking, Jeff Horn, Amir Khan. That's it. And then those are like C-level fighters. Yeah. Amir Khan is kind of past his prime at this point. I think he's retired. Amir Khan don't fight no more. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and the thing is, and Terence Crawford's got the least important belt out of all of them. He's got the WBO belt, which no one really cares about. So he doesn't really have a lot of stock. And when you hear Terence Crawford talk, he talks like he's the man, and you're not the man yet.
Not yet.
Could be. Yeah. You're not the man yet.
If he gets to Brook, and I mean in a good way, I mean not no decision. You're gonna have to put him down or hit him with something that makes Kell Brook back up. But if Kell Brook buckles him, and I'm just saying, where I'm at is
Terence Crawford been hurt before already.
Huh?
Terence Crawford been hurt before already.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. Spence has that. He's the body crusher, and if Crawford can't take those body punches, it's gonna be dicey.
Crawford almost fought Danny Garcia, but I think Danny Garcia just didn't take the fight. That would have been a good test for him.
That would have been a good test too, right? I don't know how some of these fights don't come through, but that's all with their manager.
Because what happens is, because you gotta understand, Terence Crawford is on ESPN, so it's hard for these networks to want to relinquish whoever gets to show it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. These types of things. You're not gonna have Fox trying to share stuff with ESPN or DAZN, you know what I'm saying? They're not gonna want to do that.
Errol changed the game because the way he was coming up, and like I said, I didn't even know who he was at one point. I was like, who is this guy? Where's he coming from? And then I started looking at his fights, and I became a fan instantly.
Right.
When I saw the way he was hitting guys, knocking them out just with a body shot, I was like, oh.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think if that fight, Crawford-Brook, was going to happen this year, I think they probably would have announced, the date already. So that might be like a January.
Yeah, that's gonna be,
if they were smart, I think that they should fight in December, because Kell Brook hasn't fought in almost 2 years. He hasn't fought since 2018.
So was Spence's last fight?
No. Well, so basically what happened with Kell Brook was, all right, so he lost to Spence. And then he had already been saying before then that, welterweight isn't my real weight. So, I really belong at a heavier weight. So Triple G beat him at 160. Then he went back down, got beat. So then he was like, all right, let me try to fight at 154. And he fought a couple of, like tomato cans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because the last guy he beat was Sean Porter, 2014. That was 6 years ago. That was a long time ago.
Yes.
So, you know what I'm saying? So I think if Kell Brook loses to Terence Crawford, he's going to retire. Because there's nowhere to go.
And it depends on the way he loses. Most guys don't retire; they lose by decision.
Well, Kell Brook is not going to fight no Jermall Charlo, because Jermall Charlo is going to finish what Errol started. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going to happen to him. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Kell Brook is smarter than that. That's why he came back down to 140. Because what you going to do at 154? Because there's a difference. And Percy, you know what I'm talking about, where a lot of fighters, they're not going to be quick to move up and down in weight, because that's kind of a big deal. That's not something that people really should be doing willy-nilly. I mean, yeah, you can go up in weight and then fight a tomato can, but you're not going to fight anybody worth note. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so and I think that's the thing with Kell. So you fought, freaking William Rabchenko in London, you know what I'm saying? Some random British guy, and then you feel good about yourself, but then where do you go from here? You know what I'm saying? So
I just want to say I love being a third wheel. It's amazing.
He tried. You made him feel left out. That's not nice.
What you talking about? I just brought him back
Hey, the
in.
people can relate to this. The people
I
can
brought
relate.
you back in.
No shit about MMA.
But
what are you talking about?
I got a question for y'all. I think this would be a
up?
good one. If there's one thing you had to criticize your sport on, so it'd be boxing for you, MMA for me. What is one thing that you would love for them to change?
Judging.
I have to go judging.
We talked, but that's the thing. We talked about judging already. We talked about judging. I'll say I agree, with judging, but I'll probably say the way that the belts are lined up, because I think if we had less belts, then we'd be more, the frequency of the fights that we want to get would happen a lot faster, because then there would be less options, because you only have to fight one guy. That's it. Or the number 2 guy to get to the number 1 guy to get to the champ. That's I think what people tend to, most criticize about boxing is that, or the fights don't happen when you want them to happen. Like people are saying, Mayweather-Pacquiao didn't happen until way after the fact. They didn't fight until, 2015? Was that the first time they fought? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And they only fought once.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, well, that was past, Manny Pacquiao's prime. They should have fought in 2009, 2010.
Why does everybody still want to fight Pacquiao, too? What is that?
Well,
the name.
Because Pacquiao just whipped Thurman's ass.
He's like, don't do this no more. Come on.
Well, that's the thing. Pacquiao just whipped on Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman is 30 years old. So,
yeah. I know.
That's what I'm saying.
Pacquiao can do whatever he wants, too, because he's like, okay.
Hey, yeah, because he came in there.
Come on, whip your ass.
He came in there. He knocked Keith Thurman down, I think, in the first round. And he looked good.
Don't sleep on old people. I keep telling you.
And Keith Thurman, young bull. So, you know what I'm saying? So he's still around. So, yeah, if I'm an Errol Spence, I want to put Manny Pacquiao's name up underneath my resume. Up on my head.
One time went to his head, bro. Because he think that name, One Time Thurman. I think that psychologically, I think it went to his head because he thought he could throw that one punch, and it worked a couple of times. And then he hit somebody, and it was like, oh shit.
Well, the thing I think what happened with Thurman, and Spencer quote is saying that Keith Thurman, you get a lot of money, you get the time off in between fights. He got married, he gained like 40 pounds. You lose your hunger, so then
lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly, lifestyle. So then, mind you, a big layoff because I think he hadn't fought since Danny Garcia. So you had that same mentality that Spence had. Put me in with another top guy, and you fought arguably the number 1 pound for pound active boxer right now. Because not too many people are going to dispute the fact that Manny Pacquiao is really that dude because he's still out. He's like 65-4, 65-5.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think he just lost his hunger. Because what is he doing?
Coming back?
I don't know what he's doing now. After he lost to Pacquiao, because I think he was supposed to. I think Adrian Broner was calling him out, and that fight just never happened from there. So I don't know. So that's the thing. That's the thing with boxing. With UFC, you can take a loss and you'll kind of get that run back. You'll kind of be able to be back on the rebound a lot faster. In boxing, personally, we talked about that before, where in boxing you kind of lose, then people look at you a different way because of Floyd. Floyd went undefeated for so long that people hold boxers to that same standard. Like if you're not undefeated, then you're not as good anymore.
Yeah. Right. And that's been one of the criticisms of boxing, and a lot of people feel like what's his name? AJ.
Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, he kind of briefly mentioned it. He was on that YouTube show, Hot Wings. I think I can't remember the name.
Oh yeah, Hot Wings.
Right. But he said like there's times where a lot of promotions would pass somebody's record, and unfortunately, like you said, Dimitri, boxing is not kind to people losing. And if you lose 2 fights in a row, you're a scrub. Nobody wants to sign you. Nobody wants to work with you.
Say it, bro.
Yeah. Say it. Yeah. Like now, this like Cowboy Cerrone. I love this guy, Cowboy Cerrone, Tyron Woodley.
I know him.
It took them to get to 5 losses in a row for people to be like, all right, maybe it's time to start hanging up. But people still love him. Like people will tune in. People still know that they're dangerous. But in boxing, unfortunately,
I've even heard him. Cowboy, you said? Yeah.
Yeah, Donald Cowboy. Yeah, he's an amazing fighter. He holds so many records. But,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I saw a documentary on him. He's damn good.
But I just want to touch on the thing that Dimitri said about the belts. That's one of the things that always turned me on to boxing was the fact that people walk around with five belts, which is cool. I mean, hey, good for you.
Right.
But I think it takes away from the sport because imagine someone like John Jones, who's dominated the light heavyweight division for so long, for almost 10 years, and he had to share a belt with somebody else. It would kind of deteriorate not only his reputation, but just the division itself.
See, and see, people pick and choose whose reputation gets to suffer for that because what happened?
Yeah, that's true.
What happened is, so Jermall was the mandatory for the WBC belt, which is the green belt in boxing. Canelo had it for, I'd say, a decent amount of time. So he's the mandatory. What the sanctioning body did was they said, all right, Canelo, so you don't have to fight your mandatory. Here's the franchise belt, and then we'll give your belt to Jermall so you guys don't have to fight each other. And this is why people can say Canelo's pound for pound that guy, but I don't respect him just for that. Because how would you feel? And what's funny, people blame Charlo for that. How are you going to blame me when I was the mandatory, the champ relinquished his belt, gave it to me, and then got another belt and moved up in weight so he didn't have to fight me anymore? Yeah, that's what Canelo did. He moved from 160 to 168, and then I think he had a fight at like 170.
Right.
Andre Ward's, he fought. I think Canelo fought Kovalev. He fought Kovalev last year, right? Or nah? Am I bugging? I think I'm bugging. Yeah, I think I'm bugging. Well, basically, like I said, he moved up in weight to avoid having to fight his mandatory. Things like that won't happen in UFC. It's either you're going to fight the champ or you're not, or the champ's going to fight his mandatory or he's not. That's what I like about UFC. You know, boxing, they have yet to get there, but I think there's so much money involved between these sanctioning bodies that they're not going to want to give.
How many weight classes are in UFC?
There is flyweight. About 10, probably
so it's just like boxing then, and the same with
it's probably a little less. I think it's a little less because we only have heavyweight is basically its own separate. I mean that goes from 225 to 265. The light heavyweight. So hold on, heavyweight.
Oh, by the way, Canelo did fight Kovalev, and that fight just looked crazy as hell.
Right.
So it's about 8.
It's more worldwide known, though, isn't it? I mean, it's more worldwide known, but it's known.
Yeah. It's popular. It's popular enough to where it can compete with another top tier fight card in boxing. So
right, that goes over to like Thailand, wasn't it? It was like kickboxing and all that other stuff back in the day.
No, UFC's the hype because every time I've been to,
I like the way they did. Now,
every time I've been to Wild Wings or went to Dave & Buster's, it's pretty live in there. Like the energy is pretty up, especially when it's like a really.
They thought it was going to die out like the USFL when they tried to create the XFL and all these other things.
Right. Yeah.
UFC stood its ground, man. I mean, I went to one too.
Yeah, and the nice thing about UFC is the fact that they don't, unlike boxing. Not to reiterate this point that I said in the last podcast, but they focus on building new stars. Like, every couple months there's a new flavor in town, or this, a bunch of people coming up, and they focus on them. So like Zamzat is just a new guy. He just signed like 3 months ago, and yet he's a bigger name than a lot of UFC fighters. But like you said, people know Yoel Romero. People know Nate Diaz. People know Nick Diaz. People know Khabib. People know Chris Weidman. Yeah. You got the top of the league. You got the John Jones, the Conor McGregors, and then you have the Yoel Romeros. And obviously there's people below him. But if I show you somebody, you'd be like, "Oh, I've heard of this guy before."
Yeah, I've seen it.
And like in boxing, besides the car accident Spencer was in. I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't know who he was if it was for that.
Yeah, the thing is, see, my rebuttal. I agree with you 100%. Just my whole rebuttal to that is the only reason why I know Yoel Romero and Khabib and what I'm saying, like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Nate Diaz, and I know of them is because I dated somebody that was a big fan of UFC. I will probably only know Conor McGregor because he fought Floyd.
Right.
That was it.
That's how you got started, bro.
What?
Dated somebody? That's how you found out about UFC?
like I knew about it because they had video games, but like I never went out of my way to watch a fight or anything like that.
No, I accidentally got tickets. That's what
I'm
you're
saying. Because
in Jersey.
Yeah, because back when UFC started having video games, I wasn't even into boxing at the time, so I didn't really care about I didn't care too much about combat sports or anything.
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna rebuttal you on this one. I'm like hit you with the Uno reverse card right now. But I would say, even though you dated somebody who knew about it, that's usually how it starts. Like somebody that know somebody in the UFC.
That's
a lot of the time.
You said that
you know what I'm saying? A lot of I'm sure we all know who Cowboy Cerrone is, right?
Like I said, I know him because I've been to fights. Not because the word of mouth. That's the thing. Like, because
go get my cowboy hat.
Because I wasn't. This is the thing. I wasn't into boxing, but I heard so much about Manny Pacquiao and Floyd that I knew of them just based off of hearing people talk about.
Yeah, but you became a connoisseur of it, bro. You speak boxing like you. Just,
oh yeah, now.
Yeah. Now. I mean, the car with him sometimes he talk about boxing. I'm like.
But what's funny, the people that I got up on that put me on the boxing, was Sean Porter and Keith Thurman, and they're not household names. So to me, the way that I got into the sport was like a freak of nature, because most people don't get into the sport that way. Like I got into the sport, like it was a gradual process of how I, became such a big fan of boxing now. So,
and y'all don't know shit about basketball or football.
Oh no,
I know basketball.
I'm basketball.
I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
But football, okay. Nah.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
I like the close-up right there.
Football, nah.
Nah, football, yeah.
Yeah. But bro, I don't know if you want to.
That's another story. We'll go there another time.
But Percy, I don't know if you want to, talk about, maybe upcoming, UFC fight or something like that, because I got all my talking points and everything.
I got one. See, I could talk about host. Unlike boxing, I could talk about UFC all day. But I got a question. And this is definitely going to create some headlines in the comments. Do y'all think Bruce Lee, for as amazing of a guy he was a true fighter? Do you think that if he fought in the octagon or the boxing ring, he would actually be a formidable opponent?
Yep. It depends. So? Yeah.
I watched the Michael Jai White. You guys know Michael Jai White, right?
Yeah.
He does martial arts and everything. And he was saying that, like Bruce Lee, was a martial artist. Could he go in an octagon and really fight somebody twice his size? Probably not.
Yeah, but
I think he was a student of. I think he was just more than just like an action star. I'm not sure if that's what you're implying.
Here's the thing, and I watched the Michael J. White
on DJ Vlad.
Yeah, DJ Vlad. Yeah. And a few people Chael Sonnen spoke about this. My opinion, and I agree with them, he was more of a philosopher ahead of his time. He was like the Aristotle during his time, where he had the idea of martial arts coming together and becoming, a bigger product than, just being a wrestler or just being a kickboxer. You can intertwine them. But I only ask that because I see time and time again, I see the most ridiculous things where people say, Bruce Lee could beat up Mike Tyson.
Right, I know where you're going with that.
Bruce Lee could fight John Jones.
That's taking it too far.
Yeah,
because there's weight classes for a reason. Well, maybe if they drain themselves down to, because Bruce Lee was only like 130 pounds, like maybe 125, 130 pounds. He wasn't a heavy dude. So so maybe the
people are taking it from his movies and stuff like that and thinking that he's like the greatest martial artist ever, and. No, I mean, he probably would get his ass whipped in certain situations. But I'm not here to say that he could or couldn't, because I think we don't know until we have to see it. And we're probably, of course we're not. But in reference to martial arts, in hand-to-hand combat, he did used to fight regular hand-to-hand combat fights. And it maybe wasn't like a UFC style of fight. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But Bruce Lee was quick. He just had ways. He knew how to throw you and do all these other things. That the TV and movie trickery is something else.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think that's where people want to keep that in their head. That Bruce Lee is he was the shit in movies. He always was. He always came out on top. But in real life,
Yeah, it's a difference. Yeah, it's not something that I wanted to mention, but I had to because I see this. He's like the Batman of the MMA community. It's like this man is not walking in the ring beating up Mike Tyson or even Floyd Mayweather. He's a good guy. I love this philosophy, but let's be real here. There was one of the guys that grew up with him. He did a backyard fight with him, and he said in an interview that he was like, "You're gonna be like the dummy for me, so we're gonna record it." And I'm going to beat you up, and I'm going to blow up to fame that way. And I'm not taking away anything from Bruce Lee, but let's be honest here. This guy he's not somebody who's going to rank in championship fights. He was a guy who just had a philosophy. It's like a teacher and a student. He was more of a teacher than a student of the game.
I really, that's a hard comment for me because just because of my fandom for Bruce Lee. But like I said, that's movies.
Right.
When we were younger, we didn't know a lot of things people know now. A lot of the story has been because we found out Bruce Lee died from a movie scene where he went up in and got shot. And then you found out he was poisoned. There was so many different scenarios of the way he died. So you only hold that image in our minds of what this great icon of a man was. But in real life, I'm just going to say I wouldn't know. I don't think I would chance.
I just want to start some controversy in the comments. I want people to.
But to me, I think it's to just
you're
to
gonna
say,
get a lot of comments on that one.
Like to me, if you're gonna say what Bruce Lee would or wouldn't do today, mention somebody, put him against somebody his size, like because you're not gonna say, oh freaking. Even Errol Spence said he don't want to smoke with Deontay Wilder. Why? Because Deontay Wilder's twice his size with twice the power.
No, I mean, this is unrealistic.
Bruce Lee was freaking 5'6", maybe 5'7". 5'7" is a stretch, and you're gonna put him against freaking 5'11", 5'10", Mike Tyson, 200 plus.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I see people.
No, I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying like in general.
Yeah, I see people saying that he'll beat up Mike Tyson, which is. And it was
that was in a movie.
I can't even lie about that. It was a whole debate between Mike Tyson and Bruce Lee.
Really?
A lot of people saying Bruce Lee.
What? Like to me, it's asinine. Like it's just not.
Funny.
Yeah,
you're gonna say like a regular dog can fight a fucking a lion. Like, come on, man. Like it's not even the playing field is not
a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
That's
a street fight.
That's exactly why. That's exactly why. The people say, "Oh, would Floyd beat Ali?" Why would you do that? Because Floyd is a freaking welterweight. Started his career at 125, worked his way up to 147, maybe 152 at a catchweight, and then you're gonna say, would he beat Muhammad Ali, who's 200?
That's a wasted energy conversation.
It's asinine. Like that's why I'm like people, and I think that's what Michael Jai White was saying. Like the weight, like alone.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It just negates it because it's like a common sense thing. Like,
you know what that sounds like? Somebody went like this.
You know what'd be great? Bruce
Lee
fight Mike Tyson. I'm telling you.
You know what I'm saying?
That shit would be out of this world, man. Wait a minute. Matter of fact, I think Bruce Lee could take on 3 people. I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just doesn't.
That's what it sounds like.
It's not even feasible. It's not even like a feasible thing to talk about because it wouldn't happen.
Wasted energy.
Professionally, like in a ring, like it would make sense. All right, so Mike Tyson lose 70 pounds. Fight, okay, then go fight him because you guys are the same weight and maybe retain your strength. It's not going to happen because physically, Mike Tyson can't weigh 130 pounds and fight somebody. That's why these things exist. So the playing field physiologically is even.
Right. I said this. Yeah, and look, I'm gonna keep this short. But I'm gonna say this. So Henry Cejudo is someone that is in Bruce Lee's weight class. And I said this to somebody. I was like, you really think Bruce Lee would beat up someone like Henry Cejudo, who's an Olympic wrestler, Olympic champion? You think Bruce Lee got a chance with that man? I don't think so. Bruce Lee wasn't a fighter. There's people who teach the word of God. Like this, it's like acting. There's some people who are really good at teaching acting, but just don't have the capability to be a actor.
They say those who can't teach,
Exactly. And Bruce Lee was like that. Yeah, he did practice. Yeah, he did study. But there's a difference between studying something and actually doing it.
And what about his teacher, Master Ip?
I don't know.
I'm just saying he learned it from somebody.
Yeah.
Master Ip said he took all of his teachings to Hollywood and changed some things and all this other stuff. So I'm just saying.
I agree. I agree. But because to me, it makes even when people talk about, if Michael Jordan's, basketball, Michael Jordan could be, LeBron, or if LeBron, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're never going to see it.
Yeah.
We're never going to see it.
Hypothetical.
But that's an actual realistic debate because those are two people that actually played the sport and ranked.
And I get what you're saying because Bruce Lee didn't live a lifestyle of a UFC fighter. Like, they're fighters. They're not action stars. They're not actors. They're just fighters. They train. Right. They have their fights. That is it. Bruce Lee, like you said, he was a philosopher. He was an actor. He did a whole bunch of different things. So it's apples and oranges. The comparison, it's just different, and it's never going to happen.
And it's one of those things we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Exactly. Right. But anyway, so I'm gonna just talk about. I mentioned the Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa fight, which is the main event. But the one I want to talk about is the Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz light heavyweight title, which is the second. It's like the co-main event. So a little backstory on that: John Jones, for the longest time, has been dominating the light heavyweight division.
How long? I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
Since 2011, he became the youngest champion at 23.
Yeah, I've seen Jones fight. Them kicks.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
He's brutal. He's brutal. So he's been doing this since he was 23. He's been a champion since he was 23. And I guess with all the talks of him being an all-time great and stuff like that, he decided to test the waters at heavyweight, so he relinquished the light heavyweight championship. Now, originally, this fight was supposed to be to decide the opponent that would face him, but he decided like 2 months ago that he wants to move up to the heavyweight division. So now they're fighting for the light heavyweight division title. But it's interesting because a lot of people have been talking about, although it is for the light heavyweight championship, if John Jones would have stayed as champion, would they beat him? Like, I'll give credit to Dominic Reyes. He almost did beat John Jones by the skin of a hair, but there's been talks about that, whether if John Jones come back, is he just going to sit on the throne again? Because he's been doing it for so long. He hasn't lost. But that's an interesting fight. And that's just – and it's just a match that intrigues people because of boxing, unfortunately. I feel like they don't spend a lot of time building these other fights. Like the UFC, they had a press conference for the preliminary card. A lot of organizations don't do that. They just focus on the LeBron James of the sport, the James Hardens of the sport, and leave everybody else to dry.
I think it's because these networks, they wait till, like, right now. They weren't building up the Charlo brothers until right now. Charlo brothers been around for a long time, and then it's just now they're getting the promotion. They're getting like the all access, the little documentaries, and then even then they're still shitting on them because they put them in a position where they might not, break even. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a matter of they want to wait till you build yourself up first.
That's always you got to build up a rep. I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah, and that's fine. I understand that, but it comes to a point like, for instance, I would say Dominic Reyes is a bigger sport than Paulo Costa, and he's not even in the main event, and that's because the UFC, he was undefeated until he fought Jones. I give him that. But they're all, I would say, Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya are undefeated, and yet Dominic Reyes is a bigger star than Paulo Costa because, and that's not to say Paulo Costa isn't a star, but that's because the UFC spends time developing people. They know you can't just put on one card and the main attraction is the only selling point. Like, nobody wants to spend $50 to see one match that's going to last 25 minutes.
You ain't got no choice because they control how much you get paid. It's not even like they're negotiating it, because you were saying that if they get paid $15,000 and then if they don't meet this other criteria, then that's all they get. They can't, shaft these guys on their money and then not promote them. You see what I'm saying? So I guess there's pros and cons to both. So they're not getting paid as much as boxers do, but they get more exposure. They get more backing.
Yeah.
Boxers, they get more money, but then they got that promotion.
But you got to grind too.
Showtime,
you got to put in
Zone,
some
and everybody else comes a bit later. You know what I'm saying? Because, again, Errol Spence didn't get his just due until after Kell Brook.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that I'll give you that. That has been a big criticism about the UFC because there was a fighter that just fought this past weekend. There was a female fighter, Jessica Clark. She posted a picture on Twitter that she only had $17 in a bank account. And first of all, I'm like, wow, I got way more money than you. That's just sad, but
it's controversy too.
Yeah, it's sad that a lot of fighters aren't making money. Like for instance, I just found out that their Contender Series, which is a great way if you want to get into MMA and sign the UFC. That's a good way to get exposure and fight for the boss. But they don't get paid to cut weight to fight. So all of that stuff is just for the experience. And I get it because in the real world, a lot of times you have to do internships to get that experience.
Grind. Yeah.
But yeah, that 15. Yeah, it's tough. That pay scale is tough. So it puts people in a position where I love the sport, but if I don't win, I'm not going to take home money to pay the bills, feed my family.
That's what I'm saying. They don't call the shots. They don't have a lot of the fighters don't have a lot of value. Why do you think as soon as Conor McGregor got the Floyd fight, it was a while before he went back to the UFC? Because he had made more money probably with that fight than he did his whole entire career.
But you got to have consistency.
The career high of a UFC fighter is like $1 million, maybe $2 million.
Yeah.
For like top fighters. Friggin' boxers make twice that. Way more than that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They get
you don't remember this, though. It was a movie called The Great White Hype. No.
I've heard of it, but I'm not too.
All right.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that phrase. But
the story goes is that through promotion and through building, they say, oh, man, this kid, he's been knocking people out first round, second round. And that was just talk. So all I'm saying is just like in boxing and MMA, you get guys maybe who do some crazy shit and knock a guy out, with a kick or maybe a good grapple or whatever. All I'm saying is, and then you get them to prime time. You finally get them there. You're taking a chance, taking a leap. You know what I'm saying? Then he lets you down. So do you want to keep putting your money into someone who I don't know.
You know what that happened? You know who that happened to? Steve, do you remember when Jermell Charlo knocked out Erickson Lubin in the first round? This was a couple years ago.
Yes.
That happened to him where Jermell was like, and mind you, Jermell was a champ, and he was like, yo, why is Showtime following him around? They were doing way more promotion for Erickson than they were for Charlo. Then what happened? Knocked him out the first round. Then I guess Showtime was like, oops, we're sorry. Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
It'd be like that.
I'm just saying, to me, that's the business of it.
And Erickson fought like 3 days ago on Showtime. He won. And then he's like, yeah, I'm ready for the Charlo fight again.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. I think I saw that.
And then they were saying that he looked a little chinny fighting Terence Boucher.
It was a horrible fight, man.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I didn't see the fight. I wanted to watch it, but I don't have Showtime, so.
Yeah, but that's the problem with boxing is the fact that, and I said this earlier, is the fact that you lose a couple fights and all of a sudden you're a scrub. Nobody wants to associate with you.
Build yourself back up again.
Yeah. For instance, Nate Diaz.
In the business.
Yeah, for instance, like Nate Diaz, Cowboy Cerrone, amazing fighters, but they lose. I mean, their record is their losses in the double digits, but they still get paid $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Right. So even though on the base scale, boxers get paid more, your pay ultimately is based on your win percentage. Because if you lose one fight, then lose two, I'm pretty sure you ain't getting paid $1 million for a while. You probably gonna make $50,000.
Well, that's why Floyd promotes himself. He got rid of all them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. A lot of the middleman. A lot of the top fighters in boxing right now, they don't have promoters. They don't have promoters. The Charlo brothers don't have promoters. Keith Thurman doesn't have promoters. Terence Crawford does, but now you see why he's so limited in like what he can do because he answers to somebody. Al Heyman is just there. They have managers. They don't have promoters. See, UFC, the UFC is like their promoter. You see what I'm saying? They call the shots. It's like having a manager. It's like you're working a job and you have a manager. They tell you how much you get paid. They're telling you what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. Boxers is not like that. They go, they have lawyers. They negotiate. It's like you're an actor. You're a big-time actor. The studios don't tell you how much you're getting paid these days. You have a lawyer. You go negotiate your pay. UFC, they don't do that. That's why
it depends what your contract says. A lot of these guys don't read their contracts. That's like
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, from the video games, I guess, but I didn't know that it was really like, all right, you get this fixed amount of money, and then if you don't do this other thing, then that's what you're going to get. Like, what? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, if I wanted to be a fighter, I'd rather be a boxer and try to make it than UFC because UFC, you're taking more damage and you get paid less money.
Right. Yeah, and the biggest
people
the
who
only
spending
fighters
money
you
on
see.
you too for promotions and everything and advertising.
Right.
And there's a lot of things you have to pay.
UFC fighters, they're the only ones you see walking around with their ears.
Your contract says that's how it goes.
They're the only ones you see walking around with. What is that thing called? Where like their ears are all
cauliflower ear.
Yeah, like they're the only ones you see walking around like all battered and bruised. Some fighters, you might see a couple of scars. Like Sean Porter has a lot of scar tissue on his face, but he's like one of the few. Why do you think Floyd is like, yo, don't take damage? If you can avoid taking a lot of damage, don't take a lot of damage. He said that. Boxers, to me, it just seems like there's a lot more longevity in the sport, and this is a lot more. It's just better in the long run if you can make it. Because even boxing is tough.
Though, bro.
Boxing is tough.
MMA, I hold my head up to these cats, man.
Yeah,
you know, especially when they talk about their families and they trying to support their family. If that's a way to make a living, you know, you're using your body. Unlike football and basketball, you know, you got all these resources behind you that spend a lot of money. Where you can go into one of these isolation tanks and things like that. You know, with those cryo tanks and freeze your body and shit for a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's a big part of it, man. Your body is your money, and one twist of an ankle or everything.
Yeah, these guys, these boxers, they got their like Floyd Mayweather's probably got like his fists insured for like $10 million.
Yeah,
you know, some crazy figure like that.
Boy wipes his ass in $100 bills. Shit.
It's tough. It's tough in UFC, and I think the good thing about, even though their base pay isn't that great, the good thing is because of the exposure, people will get to sign deals with Puma, Nike, and you don't even have to be Anderson Silva of the sport. Right. You know, you can still make some money. I think the only drawback to that is the fact that UFC signs these deals, and let's go back to Dimitri said, because they call the shots, they sign these deals with Reebok, so they have to wear Reebok brand and stuff, and you only get paid more after you fight a certain amount of fights, so your pay increases. Right. But the days of plugging 10 sponsors on your shorts and getting paid $50,000 is long gone.
See, but in boxing, you still see that. You'll still see that where on their trunks it got advertisements on there. Even in the NBA, like the league is set up now where the players have a lot more say and power than, you know what I'm saying, a lot of other, you know,
DJ.com, yo, let's get it. I'm just saying, it's true.
That's what I'm saying. So
sponsors is where it's at.
Yeah, so UFC really, just to me on the outside looking in, it just seems like, you know, if I were in it, it's just a lot more pros. I mean, a lot more cons than pros.
Right.
I had Sprite freaking represent me when I ran track years ago, and they gave me a uniform, and they just said, "We'll see where you go with it." That's cool though. They said I represented Sprite for one season in track. I didn't get no money because I was in college. You know, it's an NCAA rule.
Yeah.
But if I was to show and prove and bada bing, and I'm just saying that was the beginning. That was in '85.
All right, so
I'm gonna take this one. So our man Steve, the wonderful Steve, apparently when Thanos snapped his fingers, he was one of the unlucky few that got evaporated. So he may not be with us in person, but he's still on the phone.
He's still on the phone. So, Steve, any last words?
I'm using a wire hanger for internet.
Yeah. But anyway, I hope you made it to the end of this video. There will be timestamps in the comment section below, so feel free to jump around. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, check out my boy Percy's podcast, the Mr. No Days Off podcast. You can find it on Anchor, Spotify, and Zoom. And I know I took your last words, but any other last words for you, dog?
For me?
Yeah.
Well, he basically spoke for the black man, so there's not much I can say. No, stop. Yeah. It's always good to be on this podcast, man. And definitely I hope the people who love Bruce Lee check this out, because this will be a very interesting one. But, no, it was a good one, man. Thank you to you and Steve for productive conversation.
Yep. All right.
You too, person. Great meeting.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep. All right, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.